Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The two-day visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the first bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Sri Lanka, has been followed with great interest not just in the two countries but also across other key countries in the world. Sri Lanka which has witnessed a recent change in government and the formation of an interesting alliance, received the Prime Minister with open arms. The PM's visit to northern areas of the country and his meetings with the Tamils there has also been watched with keen interest. The relations between the two countries, which had gone through some rough times in the past, is sought to be recalibrated by the leadership of both the countries. So has the visit of Prime Minister Modi been able to recalibrate the relationship? Has India been able to neutralize the increasing influence of China in Sri Lanka? Will this visit mean a better deal for the Sri Lankan Tamils? And can we expect the persisting problems of the Indian fishermen to improve in the coming days? We will discuss all this today with Vivek Kajju, former ambassador, Professor S.D. Muni, a South Asian analyst, K.P. Nair, consulting editor of the Telegraph, and Professor P. Sahadevan, Center for South Asian Studies at the JNU. And from Jaffna on the phone line is my colleague Akhilesh Suman, assistant editor at the Raj Sabha TV, who has been covering the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Sri Lanka. Welcome to all of you. Akhilesh, first coming to you. What has been the kind of atmospherics during these last 2 days that you have been following the Prime Minister?
Yeah, Girish, actually, I can say that this is really a new phase between India and Sri Lanka relations. And if you see that more than 3 decades war-ravaged country, civil war-ravaged country, is really heartening to see that it is coming up. And I was moving in Jaffna area, Mannar area, and all those areas were badly infested by the LTT people. And now if you see that, if you come and you will see that people are freely moving from here to there, infrastructure, road infrastructure, everything is coming out. And you will see that India is present almost everywhere in this area, infrastructure creation, railway station creation. I went to the railway station also, Talai Mannar railway station. That is the last point of Sri Lanka in the Indian side. From where you can reach Dhanushkoti in 32 kilometers, it will take 3 hours in the normal ferry. And what I heard that normally what is happening that if there is a new film release in Tamil Nadu, people from Talai Mannar will go to Tamil Nadu and see the film and then they come back. So this type of situations have been created now. So you can understand India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi coming to Jaffna has given a boost to the confidence of not only the Tamils, even the Sealis. I talked to many Sealis. Sealis are also had realized that country cannot go like that, and they told that Tamils are Sealis are our brothers, and we want to live like the earlier period when before independence there was a good brethren relationship between Sealis and the Tamils. So you can understand that why when Prime Minister Modi came and he announced visa on arrival for common tourists from Sri Lanka in India and exemption of visa for official and diplomatic passports, it has given a new boost to the relationship between the two countries. People can go.
Okay. Okay, so Akhilesh, you please stay on. I think there is some little problem with your audio line. It will be corrected by the next time you come back. Please stay on with us. Professor Muni, how do you look at this thing, what Akhilesh is talking, that there is a fresh air of confidence among the Tamils in the northern region? You think Modi has been able to create that kind of a confidence?
Well, that's true, but that started with the change in the government in Colombo.
Right.
And I must say that the credit must be given to President Sirisena when he started relaxing on the military governor, on the information level, on talking to Vigneshwaran and opening up channels of communication with northern and eastern provinces. I think Prime Minister Modi is absolutely on dot always to put his fingers on the right buttons, and I think he did very well both while delivering his speech in Colombo as also in Jaffna. And he has done one thing which should be underlined and remarkable. He has told the Sinhalese to accommodate the Tamil aspirations, and he has told the Tamils to be patient with the new government, because the problem like the genocide resolution and others would create more complications.
Right.
The government is new, it is a rainbow coalition, there are diverse interests. They will take time to reach out to the Tamils and reach out to the problems which they wanted to address. And I think he has tried to encourage both of them positively, which is a good sign. If I may mention one more point, so far as India-Sri Lanka relations are concerned, I think the major issues are still on the table. They have not been solved. Like fisherman issue you talked about. There was to be a defense cooperation agreement was being talked about, has not been discussed. The CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which the Sri Lankans have a lot of reservations. On economic issues, they have reservations. So I think as we go further, he has created a wonderful atmosphere and we need to build upon that.
Okay, Mr. Kajjo. So the law, would you say like some people are trying to say that, Modi very rightly, just approach the low-hanging fruits, the more serious problems, as Mr. Muni pointed out, can be taken care of at the later date.
No, I think the basic problem in the relationship was a lack of trust and confidence. Right. And the Sri Lankans had great reservations, especially with the previous government, which was, in their view, dictated by interests in Tamil Nadu. And
which has been the case in the last 25 years.
Yes, and we ourselves didn't know how to navigate this. I think it is to Mr. Modi's credit that he's been able to navigate both the process in India, vis-a-vis Sri Lanka policy formulation, and the process in Sri Lanka in a satisfactory manner. Now, once this has been achieved, and quite clearly this visit successfully demonstrated that this has been attained, now that this is behind, it is now that the diplomats and the officials will get together to chart the course further on the contentious issues that Professor Mani has spoken about. So it's only then that we'll be able to chart or move ahead in a purposeful manner on all these issues, whether it's defense cooperation or whether it's CEPA or whether it's the fishermen issue. Right. Now, the fishermen issue is a terribly emotive issue, but we all know the cause of the fishermen issue. And Mr. Modi, I think, struck the right chord when he said that this has to be addressed as a livelihood and a humanitarian issue.
Right. Absolutely. Professor Sadhayan, as far as the Tamils issue is concerned, you think he has, Mr. Modi has been able to strike the right note? Because, and what kind of reactions do you expect or is happening in Tamil Nadu? Because the Tamil Nadu political parties, even the civil society groups in Tamil Nadu have been watching this visit very closely.
I think we need to look at the political solution issue at two different levels. India being a neighbor, somewhat an interested stakeholder in trying to bring out a solution. We can really communicate what we really want the leadership to really sort of do there. Beyond that, it's up to the local political constituencies to address. Now, what you really see is, I think he sent a very clear communication, and the messages were very clear, both the Sinhalese and Sri Lankan Tamils. They need to really make it inclusive. We need to really work beyond the 13th Amendment and bring about a change which would really be satisfactory, at least sort of, for everyone in Sri Lanka. Now, the political complexities there in Sri Lanka is not easy to really sort of overcome. One has to wait for the parliamentary election, maybe later this year, maybe summer or beyond. One doesn't know exactly when they're going to be, and see what kind of a composition the parliament is going to have it. And therefore, I think internally, it's going to be a very huge challenge for Sirisena government and also the TN, the Tamil National Alliance, to really sort of really bargain and really work out a solution. You can't really push beyond a point. You can really communicate what you really expect. And this is what Prime Minister Modi did it in the last visit.
Okay, in fact, Mr. KP, communicate what is just the right kind of communication, because beyond a point they also may get, worked up about it. In fact, this 13th Amendment, referring to the 13th Amendment, Prime Minister Modi, you think did the right thing? And how do you think it has been taken in Sri Lanka by the Sri Lankans?
You see, my view is slightly contrarian compared to what my colleagues on the panel have expressed. I mean, it's always good to visit neighboring countries. It certainly good by way of gesture, it's good by way of substance. But I would have preferred Prime Minister Modi to wait till the legislative elections in Sri Lanka, where the parliamentary elections were over. Because President Sirisena was here soon after his election, right? I mean, it was a grand gesture. They had a good discussion. The visit was good in atmospherics. So where was the need to rush and go back there on a return visit? We don't know what is going to happen in the parliamentary elections. Supposing the current coalition falls apart, President Sirisena and Prime Minister Wickremesinghe don't get along. And if there is going to be a different setup after the parliamentary elections, I mean, you can't rule out the fact that Mahinda Rajapaksa may become Prime Minister after the elections. Then we are having to rework the whole thing, you know. So I would have preferred the Prime Minister to wait, you know. I mean, we always have, the problem with our diplomacy is that we jump into things and then we are in situations where we can't follow up things, you know. 2008 we completed the nuclear deal with the US. Where is it? We haven't gone anywhere. I mean, in 1993-94, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao opened a new chapter, historic chapter with Iran. My friend Vivek Kajju has dealt with Iran. He knows where we stand, you know. I mean, we haven't gone anywhere from that time, you know. So I very much fear that while this is a good start and it's a good thing for the Prime Minister to have gone to Sri Lanka in principle, I mean, I have my own doubts if we will get anywhere if the parliamentary election results are different.
Just Mr. Kajju. We waited for an ideal moment since 1987. Surely, if we kept waiting, we'll be waiting for Godot.
No, but what about his point that here was the Sri Lankan president was here just 2-3 weeks back. Why this hurry to go?
No, there was no hurry. This was part of an Indian Ocean visit.
Okay.
And in that sense, the Indian Ocean islands, beginning with Sri Lanka and Maldives was a different case. The Prime Minister avoided it, and rightly so. But in Sri Lanka, the presidential elections, which are certainly the most important election, the parliamentary elections are important. But this election is over. Now we can't keep waiting to see that an ideal situation, political situation obtains in
So you
Sri
don't
Lanka.
think this visit will have any negative consequences?
No, if there is a new situation, well, diplomatically you'll deal with the new situation.
You'll deal with the new situation.
No, yes, I also don't think there will be any negative consequences. But you know, we could have optimized the gains if we had waited for the parliament.
He met Rajapaksa.
I beg to disagree with KP because it was time and it was necessary for us to go and extend support to the new government there. Why was it important? Because if we had problems there and a new dispensation has come, parliamentary elections are not really of foreign policy concern, frankly, because there is still, until the so-called proposed 19th amendment is brought about and the constitutional powers of the president are, shed off and a new system comes up, president is the authority. Therefore, it was necessary that after this important election, the Indian Prime Minister should have gone. Secondly, I also want to endorse what Vivek has said, that we have waited for long. We should have gone in 2009, for instance, when LTT was, we did not. Now, this repeated, hesitance, and I am not saying this only for Sri Lanka, I have seen it in relation to other neighbors. Bangladesh, Nepal. I mean, how long you go on waiting for
an ideal situation?
No, in Nepal, for instance, we brought about a massive transformation by bringing the Maoist on the table, and none of our leaders visited there. So this is not the right approach at all, as to wait for the opportune moment which may never come.
Okay. Akhilesh, the question of the speech of Prime Minister Modi to the Sri Lankan Parliament, in which he mentioned the 13th Amendment, gave a slight nudge to the Sri Lankan government to move ahead and fulfill their... How has it been taken both as far as the Tamils are concerned and as far as the Sinhalese are concerned?
Yeah, actually I was present in the parliament at that point of time, Girish, and when Prime Minister was talking about cooperative federalism, I could understand that what is there in his mind. What was his suggestion that makes Sri Lanka a composition of states like India does have, give the states the rights that India has given the rights. And the same question I was asking to the Tamil people and also the Sinhalese people. They were saying that exactly there are 9 provinces in Sri Lanka, and in every province there is in mind that we should get some rights like Indian states do have. So everyone has welcomed the suggestions made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And amazingly, what happened normally in the when you a statesman, when a president or prime minister of some country give a speech in the parliament, there is no speech from the host country like Prime Minister, but Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe spoke after Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke, and we were a bit scared that if he is going to make some controversial statement again. But Ranil Wickremesinghe was quite eloquent, and he was telling that yes, India is our, in a way, India is our brother, and India is our ideal in some ways. And he also told that India should take a leading role in the whole Indian Ocean region. So you can understand that the speech of Prime Minister we say in the whole Indian region and the Sri Lanka we say in the whole Indian Ocean region is exactly on the same path. So I think that on political terms there is no differences between India and Sri Lanka ambitions.
Okay.
But coming on the other side, what Tamils and Sinhalese are saying, I was roaming around in Jaffna, in Talai Manar, in Manar area, everywhere people were, you can understand the change from the LTT era. And they were telling that India is present in all these areas, in infrastructure, in railways. I went to the Talai Manar where Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the railway station. It's a beautiful railway station. You cannot understand such railway station coming in India. So there is a lot of goodwill, and this goodwill, I think, it will generate further cooperation between the two countries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Professor Sahadevan, the same question which I was asking Akhilesh also, 13th Amendment, the push towards the 13th Amendment which Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made. How do you think the Sri Lankan government has reacted to it? And do you think that there will be any positive, signals from the government and positive approach from the government on this?
Looks like I think they are not openly, come out and said what their position on the 13th Amendment. I think, if you ask the TNA, if you ask the Mr. Vigneswaran, I think they are not very keen to really pursue, 13th Amendment as a basis to, negotiate a deal. I think they want to really go beyond it, and they really look at a framework which is outside or more expanded in terms of bringing in what Madam Chandrika Kumaratunga negotiated during, 2000. The 2000 bill is something which I think the TNA would like to refer. I think if you ask the government side, I think they really, possibly, I think preferably 13th Amendment minus is an option they really would like to pursue. So it's an unclear position so far. I think, but we haven't keep repeating, 13th Amendment beyond is something which I think also keep, making uneasiness among the Tamils and also a section of the, the political class from the Sinhalese side.
Okay.
So,
yeah, please finish.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think
okay. Okay, Professor Muni?
No, I have a very different opinion on 13th Amendment. In my mind, it is time that we stopped rattling on 13th Amendment for a long time. I'll tell you why. 13th Amendment was in 87.
Right.
Lot of water has flown down the Sri Lankan rivers, and a dramatic change in the political situation has taken place even amongst the Tamil areas. Therefore, for instance, joining of the 2 provinces.
Right.
Now, it's absolutely unnatural at this stage. Now, why therefore we should go on defining the letter of what change should be there, what devolution should be there? I think it is good enough for a Prime Minister like Mr. Modi to emphasize cooperative federalism, or give example of India that how best we are trying to deal with our states. And if there is something good in it for the Sri Lankans, let them pick it up. Otherwise, what we should do is to encourage both the sides to sit down on the table and reach a resolution of the national issue.
If they want us to act as...
No. We should not even act as a mediator. We should only encourage them to sit down together and negotiate to their own comfort.
Absolutely.
Because
Mr. Kajjo?
You know, there are certain political realities both in India and in Sri Lanka. And I think the very term 13th Amendment has become a symbol of these political realities. So I find it difficult to conceive of any government in India, including the present government, giving up the use of this term. But as Professor Muni rightly says, the ground realities in Sri Lanka are very different now. And I, for one, after Sri Lanka and the Sinhalese in particular, having gone through the experience of the Tamil Tigers, cannot conceive of their devolving authority, especially with regard to the coercive apparatus of state. I think it will take a long time before the Sinhalese will be assured that there can be devolution of police powers, etc. That is my take.
This whole, there's already, I was reading one of the Sri Lankan websites. There is a little bit of discomfort about this, about Prime Minister talking about 13th Amendment. They're saying that, they're giving instances of what's happening in India. There is a little bit of discomfort.
Just one sentence.
Yes.
13th Amendment in the Sinhala perception is seen as an imposition.
Exactly.
Because it came soon after Indo-Sri Lanka agreement.
Right.
And the kind of... So why should we unnecessarily...
No, but you please, Professor Saab, please see how the Tamil Nadu opinion will react. If this is not used, how will Tamil opinion in Sri Lanka will react?
Foreign policy or you are running India?
No, you are right. But you have
but
to take
it has been Tamil Nadu's foreign policy for a long time in this country, unfortunately.
He has distanced himself from that.
Yes, KP?
Prime Minister Modi is good at charting new paths, thinking out of the box. He has shown it already in almost a year that he has been in office. And I am hoping that he would do the same with the Tamil problem, because in this country, I get the feeling that we are really not aware of what is likely to happen in the public domain, certainly, maybe in the government and intelligence agencies and all we are. Because I am not an optimist as far as the way forward on the Tamil issue in Sri Lanka is concerned. Because, you must look at President Sirisena's background. He is a settler. Where he comes from, he is a settler, So, settlers tend to be much more hardline than the people there. And I have a feeling that, he is going to be much more hardline on the Tamil issue than Rajapaksa was.
But the kind of signals which he has sent since he has taken over 2 months back is very positive and more conciliatory towards the Tamils.
This is the honeymoon period.
This is the honeymoon period.
This is the honeymoon period.
Professor Sadevan, you think it's the honeymoon period?
No, I think Sri Lanka has changed. I think it's not anymore Mahinda Rajapaksa is Sri Lanka. Of course, one can assume he can really come back if possible, or not possible at all. But I think there is a sea change in the mindset, the way that people want to look at the inter-ethnic relations, the way they want to really, take pride in being a very liberal democracy. I think within a month or 2 months in time, you could see everyone enjoying the freedom they really experience now, and they compare the life of what today with what they experience under MR regime. And therefore, I think no leader can be very insensitive to the changes that are brought about through the election that happened in January. I'm not saying that the easy way out. I'm not saying things are going to be very smooth to negotiate a deal, but I think it's a very hard effort. But I think it's not that one can think in terms of Rajapaksa, Sirisena really following what MR really followed, 9 years. Okay. I think it's a huge change in Sri Lanka. That's we need to acknowledge.
Professor Muni, coming to because in the past discussions, several discussions which we have had on Sri Lanka, inevitably China has been, we have been looking at China and how China has played a role in Sri Lanka. You think, as far as that aspect is concerned, Prime Minister Modi's visit to some extent has recalibrated the relations between, if you look at it in a triangular way?
Well, before I come to China, may I say, KP, you should remember, we must remember that Sirisena has won on massive Tamil vote as the presidency. He therefore cannot afford to ignore their interests, no matter what his earlier preoccupations were. And he is not a hardliner as Mahinda Rajapaksa has been. Now, coming to China, I am very happy that Mr. Modi did not raise this flag.
Raise the issue.
Because China is Sri Lanka's concern. I mentioned here that Sri Lanka's relations with China are as old as 1952. Please recall they had the rice rubber deal in 52, much against the pleasure of the Western powers who put sanctions upon them. Still they stood by it. So there is a long tradition and history of Sino-Sri Lanka relations. Even in 62, the Sri Lankan Prime Minister said we will negotiate. They did not join us by saying that what the Chinese have done is wrong and all that. Therefore, we must be very objective, very careful and realistic in assessing what we would want Sri Lanka, which I am sure Mr. Modi has conveyed this to the Sri Lankan authors, that don't do anything which offends or affects our interests adversely. And this is where projects like, Colombo City project or the use of Hambantota or even Colombo Port for military or strategic purposes, because Chinese have a habit of creating economic assets and then using them as camouflage for strategic purposes. So long as we can persuade Sri Lanka to make sure that Chinese don't do that, I think we are dealing with the Chinese economically. We are engaging them with Chinese economically.
So how can we say
Sri Lanka not to do that?
Kajjo?
No, it's not a question of economically. That, of course, the Sri Lankans are fully, they are sovereign, they have every right to go about it, to engage the Chinese.
But,
but on security concerns,
yes.
I think the Prime Minister, without naming China, made it quite clear that India's security and Sri Lanka's security is indivisible. What was the subtext? The subtext was, please don't do anything that will
jeopardize,
that will cause us concern. And certainly, what Mahinda Rajapaksa and his brothers were doing caused grave concern here.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, we are perfectly within our rights to convey to Sri Lanka, to signal to Sri Lanka that, look, if the Chinese come close to you on security in a manner that casts a shadow of suspicion in our minds, then we are well within our rights to defend our interests.
Yes.
If one followed Indian media coverage soon after the recent Sri Lanka elections, one would have got the impression that the entire election in Sri Lanka was about Sri Lanka's relations with China vis-a-vis India. That is really not the case. But Vivek is right about the history of Sino-Sri Lankan relations. But to my mind, for us, the bigger challenge in real terms and in the long run is the gaining influence of the United States in Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka.
We overlook because we think...
I'm sure the look on Mr. Vivek Kajju's face says that there is another topic for discussion, the US, Sri Lanka, India, this thing maybe.
In South Asia,
in South Asia.
Is a topic.
That's a topic which we need to discuss. But, one quick, as far as the fishermen issue is concerned, Professor Sahadevan, you think that there has been any progress on that?
No, I think before that, I think it's, it's good to really have a balanced relationship with Sri Lanka. The Sri Lankans' worry now is that, we don't push them to really be very close to India. That's the concern they do really have now. On the fishermen issue, I think it's, let's admit, I think it's, in my understanding, I think the fishermen issue is a livelihood issue more for the northern fishermen in Sri Lanka than for those, the trawlers who have been sent across from Tamil Nadu. There is a huge business interest which is really working. I think let's be very reasonable in a way. We also reasonably legalistic on this issue. I think we must really put our head together to really realize and tell the fishermen. I think there are limitations beyond which you can't go. I think the beginning is, the fishermen level talks. I'm not sure that will actually lead to a very logical conclusion until the government's actually, behind, with the proposals and sort of the, pushing those things there.
Okay. I think on that note we need to end this. The general consensus is that the visit of Prime Minister Modi has been useful. We'll wait and watch how it will have a long-term or even a mid-term impact. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, The Big Picture, same time tomorrow.